All right, we're live. Going to go over a couple of things for the Keystone Bowl. Brett and I decided we're going to go over the tail of the tape in regards to the Keystone Bowl. We're going to go down by positions and break everything down so you guys can get an idea of what we're looking at come tomorrow, and you guys could probably make your own decisions on who do you think is going to win. So Buffalo's 9-1. The Vikings 10-0, first ever 10-0 season for the Vikings. Uh, you've had a couple undefeated seasons. What's that like?
Job's not finished. It's only finished if you win Saturday, man. Other than that, it doesn't mean shit.
All
Means
for
you
now.
had means you put in the work and you accomplished your first part of the mission. But I think at this juncture that it's either win or it was a failure. I mean, that's kind of how we always looked at it.
Yeah, so let's get into a couple of some of their games this season. We'll start with week 0 for the Buffaloes. They played the Raptors. Um, Not a real close game. Some of the takeaways that from that game were pretty much seeing the Buffalo's passing game.
Yeah, I was much more maligned this year but I mean their passing game is what it is. It's not, they're not going to go out there and air it out. They're not going to take, you know, just 30 pass plays a game. Like that's not what they do. They're just efficient at what they do because they run the ball so well that their play action pass game works pretty much to perfection. So, I mean, it's not that they're, like super flashy out there chucking it all over the place. They're just efficient with what they do. I think that was kind of one of the things that was a big thing for them this year. I think their front five played absolutely solid all season long. I mean, I think the biggest question that they've had pretty much this whole season is just, how good is their secondary going to hold up against those teams that are heavily passing teams. I mean, even though they beat the Wildcats, they were getting carved up. So,
Yeah, it's pretty much been it's business as usual for the Buffaloes. I mean, ever since they even came into the league, it's been pretty much they showed their hand and they forced you to try to beat them or stop it. And not many teams have had the ability to stop it.
yeah. I'm I mean, they're exactly what an expansion GEFA team, is what the league wants to see. A team that comes in the first year, they were pretty competitive for a first year team. You know what I mean? And then they kept building year after year. They we've had conversations with guys from the Buffs, here and there, and I mean, I think their biggest thing is like they've all played together forever. You know what I mean? They've all known each other their whole lives and stuff. So basically they're just taking what they've been doing their whole lives and transferred it to a team in this league. And once they started to feel their way through what this league was all about, they're able to do what they've been doing. They're kind of bringing some of that old school GEFA back, like when I first started in this league. Like that's kind of how this league was. It was run heavy league. You didn't really have super flashy passing games or anything like that. Like it was kind of just smash mouth football. And that's pretty much what they play: smash mouth football, and then they splash that play action pass game in on you, and they know how to call it. They make some great calls at some opportune times. I mean, I'm not sure, if they got an offensive coordinator making them calls, or if it's quarterback driven or what, but like they've made some pretty good calls, like in some situations, and hit some chunk plays with that play action pass game.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty much, I don't want to say identical team of last year, but they definitely had different looks, different weapons this year as to like years past. So it's anytime you get a team like that that just beats the hell out of you on the ground, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they start chucking it around, like that's a problem.
Yeah. And I think defensively for them, like they're opportunistic, man. They create a lot of turnovers. Like they've had a lot of fumble recoveries. I think one guy in their secondary had like 6 or 7 picks on the year, if you count the playoff game. You know what I mean? Like they, I think that's the thing for them. Like they're just opportunistic. When they get chances, they take advantage. And especially like in games where they're leading, like they're able to just get those turnovers and then grind it down.
And it doesn't seem like, other than the Vikings game, they during the season they really didn't seem to have many like problems. They didn't like really didn't face any kind of adversity. I think like let's look at their schedule. The Raptors 65-22, the Mustangs 53-38, Crusaders 46-0. The Miners 84-13, the Titans 62-0. Wilpo the first time 70-54, the Nightmare 80-20.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty smooth sailing season for them, with the exception of the MOVA game.
Right.
But I
And
mean,
then
this ain't the regular season.
they had some ups and downs in the Comanche game, 150-42. And then they had that game against the Vikings where it was 88-48, where they lost. And then they bounced right back against the Warriors 64-24.
Yeah, I mean, I think we pegged it pretty much from the jump this season. Like we said, they would be a contender if they've been there the last, they were there last year, even the year before that. I think they made the playoffs their first season. Like they just needed to be able to get over that hurdle. Obviously, now they're still playing that hurdle. You know what I mean? But the way the schedule and the system worked out this year, they ended up as the 2 seed, even though they're from essentially the same conference. You know what I mean? Let's be
Yeah.
realistic. Like everybody always looks at it as mountain and valley. So like they still ended up as the 2 seed, but they still have to try to get over that hurdle. Like they had to go up against it, and they got pinch slapped. I mean, you lose by 40 points, that's an ass kicking.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to understand that you can't turn a ball over against a team like that. If you turn a ball over against a team like that, you're done. I mean, they're going to put up points. Their defense is, solid. So it's like you can't afford to have those mistakes. And I think that's kind of been the forte in that game against, MOVA. You know what I mean? Like that's why they lost by 40 points. You turn the ball over, you make too many mistakes, and that's a talented team over there. They're stacked, and they're going to
Yeah,
make
that's
you pay
one of those
for it.
teams where you just can't make that many mistakes because at the end of the day, they're going to make you pay for it. And I think that's one of the problems that the Buffaloes didn't face all year is because they went against teams, they made mistakes, and nobody took advantage of it.
Yeah. And I also think that, it was as a competitive person, like that's in the back of your mind. You go in against a team that you haven't been able to get past, you know what I mean? And you're like, this is it. This is our time. We're coming out here. We're going to bang. We're fucking winning this game. And, once one thing goes wrong, it's like, oh shit, here we go. You know what I mean? And then it starts a snowball effect.
Yep,
And
here we go again.
before you know what's going on, you're down 4 touchdowns. And then it's like, well, shit, like you said, we talk about it. Like they're not a team that's gonna just, chuck it all over the field. So when you're down 4 touchdowns and you're a team that's, more run heavy than pass, and like that's how you build your efficiency. Well, when you're down 4 touchdowns, running the ball is not really going to do a whole lot for you, unless you're hitting like home runs.
Yeah.
So, like that's a spot that's a spot you can't put yourself in.
All right, now let's get into the Viking side of it a little bit. You and I were both at their first game, week 1 at
Yeah.
the Warriors. Seemed to struggle a little bit early.
I kind of expected that though. Like realistically, I mean, you're taking, a few pieces from another team that have played in the same system for, a decade plus, and now all of a sudden they're with a bunch of new guys around them. Everybody's trying to gel together. They're trying to learn the system. Everybody's trying to build that cohesion. Like that was to be expected. I think anybody that was thinking they were going to come out and just start popping the roof off, like, was just being ridiculous about it. Like, especially on limited practice time. I mean, I think they only got the practice from like mid to end of January till the beginning of the season. So it's not like there was a whole lot of time invested in, leading up to that first game. And I think we saw that the majority of the season as they started to work through the season. Like you saw that, like their game started to be more consistent. They started to play a little smoother, a little cleaner. Guys, the offensive side of the ball started to gel really well. Like, I mean, at the end of the season, they're hanging 80 points up.
Yeah, it took a while for them to seem to start clicking. They did play Wilpo at Wilpo, where it seemed like they got lucky to get out.
I agree. I agree. It definitely was not their best football. Like you could tell, like they were still searching for, an offensive identity. I mean, I think Greg ran the ball in that game like 20 times. Like that's you could just, it was still a work in progress at that point. Like that would have been a huge win for Wilco if they could have pulled that off.
Right.
But great players find ways to win games even when they're not playing their best, and that's essentially what it came down to. Like, and I said this at the beginning of the year. I would expect them to have a little bit of a learning curve, a little bit of a sluggish, first half of the season. But if they found it and they started rolling, they were going to be tough to beat. And doesn't matter when or where you're playing them. Like it's just they're a stacked roster. It's a stacked team. They're loaded. Hall of Famers all over the field, both sides of the ball. So,
yeah, and I think a lot of teams really didn't, or a lot of people in the league really didn't give them much room for error or anything. So I think it was everybody just expected. Well, Greg, Neihart, Tavares, all of them are Gilchrist are all going over to the Vikings. That it should be 70, 80 point games because that's what they're used to with the Cyclones. But then like they were getting like 26, 18, 37, 35 games, and everybody was like, what's wrong with them? Like what's going on? Like it's
Yeah, I mean that's a natural reaction when you start rattling off the talent they got over there. Not to mention the Vikings players that were already there, like Malik, Rob Albro. You know what I mean? They have Dane Bright. Like they have a slew of weapons already on that team. You know what I mean? But all those guys are playing together. Essentially, realistically, for the first time, All-Star games, you can't really count that shit. That's kind of just a free fall.
Yeah.
But realistically, like now they're playing under an organization, under a coaching staff with a system, you know what I mean, for the first time together. So it was definitely going to be a little bit of a learning as the season went on. I mean, maybe you could say you'd expected it to happen a little sooner, but then again, like I mean, like I said, I'm not surprised. Like it takes time. It takes time, but like I said, once they found it, they found it. And I mean, they're putting up 60, 70, 80 points a game. So if you don't come out and play your best football against them, probably gonna have your ass handed to you.
Yeah. I mean, if you go by the Vikings scores in that, it was 38, 66, 37, 26, 46, 43, 38, 32. And then we get June 8th against the Buffaloes, and all of a sudden it's 88-48. Then the next week after, 94-6.
Yeah, no, I mean some of that's based on teams they're playing and all, but it's still like that's what I'm saying. Like you could see it watching film that they kind of found their groove. So I mean, what was their playoff game? What was the score of that?
48-26 over the Comanche.
Yeah, and I mean Comanche's a solid team. They've had a solid defense for years. To win by 3 scores on them, that's a pretty damn good night.
I mean, let's just go by the playoff game. They played week 4 and won 26-18. Fast forward to the playoffs, it's 48-26, day and night.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, and you could just see it watching the film. Like it's not always about the score. Like you could just see the consistency on the field. Like actually, I was just kind of going through that highlight tape that was posted inside the GEFA page, and you could even see some the plays on the field later in the season. Like you could see certain things that were happening, and it was like, oh, okay, you know what I mean? Like you could see the gelling going on. You could see guys understanding where they're supposed to be. You could see the quarterback understanding where his guys are going to be. And that's a dangerous thing, especially when you got the goat back there running around, chucking the dart.
Yeah. By the way, that video was done by Monk. Hats off to Monk for helping out and doing that video. He did the little preview. He got all the clips together, and he did a great little video preview video for everybody. So, Monk, thank you if you're watching. I know I don't say that very often. So,
Man, that was probably painful for you right there, wasn't it? That hurt to say.
uh, Trey Gilbriscoe's hat's back on, please. um, so let's get into a little bit before we start on the tail of the tape. Their first matchup against each other. I believe it was week 9, maybe. That they played against each other. Not really close out the gate. The score seemed a lot closer than what it was, even with a 40-point loss.
Yeah, I mean turnovers were a big problem. And I don't think the Vikings missed on a drive the whole game.
Yeah,
Maybe in the fourth quarter. I don't know,
maybe
but
towards the end, yeah.
like I said, I mean, they went against the 2 seed at what end of the season essentially. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? They probably played their best game of the year. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
Buffalo's made some great plays in that game. It was never going to be enough with the turnovers that they've and the points that they've already spotted them.
it's extremely hard to come back in a game when you're down. I think at one point it was like 82-28 or something at one point. Like that's tough.
Yeah,
And it gets one of those moments where it's like everything you do wrong, like you just can't get a bounce at all. And you just have to pretty much sit there and hope that the clock runs faster.
yeah. You've experienced that once or twice.
Yeah, I've definitely been there. It's pretty brutal.
Things have gotten dark for you.
You fall behind, and it's like shit. It's how much time's left? Let's get it out. Let's get it over with.
Oh man,
I mean, and we've all been there.
sure have.
All right, so what do you before we get into the tail of the tape, what do you feel uh, uh, both teams need to do to win this game?
You don't want me to answer this at the end of the tail of the tape?
You want me to? All right, we'll save that then. I just wanted to see if it was going to change. All right. So let's get into the tail of the tape. We'll go offense first, like usual. Uh, we'll start with the offensive line. Who do you think has the better offensive line?
Man, you had to go there first. Damn, that's brutal.
I don't want to start off with like the
I mean,
quarterback.
the Buffs' offensive line does well for what their system is. Like they know exactly what they're doing. They run their block schemes pretty much to perfection every time on run plays. Pass protection gets a little iffy for them. Like Levi has a tendency to get under a lot of pressure, and then bad passes start happening. Um, Moba's offensive line's kind of the same way. Like they're good. I just think they're better in pass protection overall. Is what it comes down to for me. I think both teams execute run blocking pretty well, obviously. And I would give the slight edge to Mova's offensive line because I think they're just better in pass protection overall than the Buffaloes. And that's not saying the Buffaloes are horrible or bad or anything. That's just saying I think Mova's got a slight edge because I think they're a better team overall. Leaf Henderson,
I mean, you
you know what
can
I
do
mean?
a push on this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could. You know what I mean? I could, but I just like I said, I just think Mova's offensive line's a little better. Like, Leaf Henderson, I mean, that guy switched over. I think he played D line. You know what I mean? He moves over to offensive line and he's a big guy, man. He's got a huge wingspan. That's a big dude to get around. Bailey's been a solid tackle his whole career in this league. And obviously Emilio's the best center in the league. And yeah, people might argue that, but watch the tape. It doesn't lie. So, I mean, I just overall, and like Emilio's from a passing team. So like, his best asset is pass blocking because he's used to doing that. I've seen that dude pick up a nose tackle and a blitzer all in the same play. So, in the grand scheme of it, I just, yeah, I mean, realistically, you might be able to push it, but I still give this slight edge to Mobile on the offensive line. I have another push on the offensive side of the ball when we get to it.
All right. Let's get into wide receivers.
I mean, what's your take? What's your take on the O line, James? Let's not skip
Oh,
over that.
see, see the O line. I think with their systems, I think both offensive lines do very well with their systems. Like you said, Mova's a passing team now. They're very good when it comes to pass protect. When it comes to the Buffaloes, they're very good in their schemes when it comes to the offensive line. So it's especially when they're running the ball. So it's like a toss up between the two, but it's like I gotta
I mean, in the grand scheme of the game, like this is how I look. This is how I come down to my decision, right? And I'm like, if if it gets one way or the other, if one of these teams is down 2 or 3 scores at halftime, and we come in the second half, and that team really needs to start like kind of airing it out and throwing the ball more. What team is better set up for that situation? And that's how I got to the fact is like in Mova's case, I just think they're like you said, they're more of a passing team now, and they're more equipped to pass protect if they get in a situation where they're down a couple scores at the half. I
yeah.
mean, I wish we kept like offensive stats as far as like a whole offense. You know what I mean? Like how many sacks they've given up on the year, stuff like that. Like because that definitely would play into it. Like I mean, you
Well,
would kind
maybe
of
the
like
stat committee can do that next year.
I think the numbers would back it up. You know what I mean? Like exactly what I'm saying. Like yeah, if the Buffaloes get in a situation where they're being able to dominate the game with their ground game, then yeah, I mean that would essentially make them the better O line. But I've been in quite a few chip games. I know how this shit goes.
Well, maybe you'll have to look into that with the stat committee next year.
I mean, yeah, we can get some
I mean,
competent people doing it.
all you guys do now is verify stats. It's not like you're adding them to the website.
Yeah, that's nice.
So maybe we could add more to the stat committee.
Well, it's nice. It's nice not to have spent 3 hours on the computer putting stats in.
Isn't it? I'm gonna go with I'll go with Vikings O line on that, but very close margin.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
I know what you're saying in that, but I think that has more to do with the skilled positions rather than the O line when it comes to that. I mean, the O line's just going to be the O line. It's
Give or take, they go hand in hand. Yeah, I mean
yeah,
you can't win games without an offensive line. I think that's the one thing we've learned in this league over the years. The teams
yeah,
that are successful year in and year out have at least a decent, solid offensive line up front, and both these teams have that. I mean, you could easily say, yeah, it is a push. I mean, I wouldn't argue that, but I just think if it gets into the grand scheme of the situation, I think there's a slight edge to the Mova offensive line than it is to the Buffalo's offensive line. And like I said, it's not a knock on them. They're a damn good offensive line.
yeah. All right, let's go to wide receivers.
Doom, 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 doom. I mean, this one's easy for me. Like it's Mova.
Yeah, I think you got to go
I
mobile with this one.
mean, you got Nahar, Rob Albro, Sean Steve, Malik when they throw him out there to play a little slot or whatever. Like Dane Bright, you know what I mean? Not even starting, coming off the bench. I mean, just he's an assassin in the slot, just like Nyhart is. Like, I mean, that's a lot of heavy hitters right there as far as a wide receiver core. I mean, Buffaloes are I mean, we can keep beating the same horse with they're productive in their system, and they are. You know what I mean? If they played for a team that threw the ball 30, 40 times a game, they would probably have way better numbers and, you know, be one of those guys you looked at, as one of the top receivers. But don't sleep on him. Ian Valente's a savage, man. That dude's mad good. I mean, they got a couple guys on that wide receiver core that are just, they're sneaky good. They're just not a heavy hitting passing team. So,
Yeah,
I
I
think
just don't think they pass enough to be able to say that they're over the Vikings on this one.
yeah, they're very efficient wide receivers. It's just I think Mova has the better core of receivers.
All right, that was a quick one. This is
Yeah, I
probably
mean
gonna be
that
a quick
was
one too. Let's go
easy.
running backs.
This is my wash, honestly. Like, I mean, I know Mova doesn't run the ball that much as they used to. I should say they still run the ball a lot. But I mean, Malik's been one of the best running backs in the league for what, 5 years now? You know what I
5
mean?
6 years.
And I think McCleaster over the last 2 seasons has proven he's one of the top running backs in the league. You know what I mean? He obviously splits his rushing with the quarterback in that system, but to me, he's right there. I mean, you could even probably give him a slight edge because he does touch the ball more and is leaned on more in their offensive game plan versus Malik. But anybody that saw, the playoff game that they had where he's out there making crazy runs and shit, scoring touchdowns, like, I mean, it's hard to argue. Like, so for me, I think it's a wash. Both these guys are really good, and I think they're on the same playing field. I mean, if you were going overall, system running back, like then I think you go McCleaser. Just like I said, he gets way more touches. You know what I mean? He gets way more production in a system that he's splitting with a quarterback who also runs just as much. I mean, they're also two different style running backs. Like Malik's kind of like a slash, juke you out of your cleats type running back, and McCleaster's more downhill smash mouth. I'm going to run right through your chest type of running back. I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen him take dive plays this year right up the middle for 15, 20 yards, like just running dudes over, breaking tackles. So, I
Right.
mean, this is definitely that's a good one. That's a good matchup there. Be interesting to see how it shows out in the Keystone Bowl.
Yeah, I'm the opposite on this one. I'm going with Buffaloes. It just even with Ian in the backfield, you have McCleister who led the league in rushing yards. You have Levi. I just think overall that's their bread and butter, and that's who I'm giving the nod to.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I can't argue that. Like, I would even give him the slight edges as far as their system and the way it plays out. Can't argue that. It's a
Right.
solid point.
Like that's
And I think he was one of the top running backs in rushing touchdowns this year,
yeah.
if not the top. Not sure
He
how
was
I'm not
definitely
sure
up there.
I'm not sure how it shook out after the website change.
I'll tell
Because
you in
at
a
that point
second.
I stopped putting stats in.
Yeah, he had 17 rushing touchdowns this year.
Yeah. I mean, I would expect that. Like I said, I won't argue that him over Malik. Like, he's a beast, man. I mean, you watch the film, you see it when he runs the ball. Like he runs hard as shit, breaking 3, 4 tackles every carry.
All right, let's get into the last category. I mean, it's another point to yours with the offensive line for Mova is you got Trey, you got Tavares helping out with that offensive line.
Two of the
It's
best in the
just,
business.
yeah,
Two guys that really understand responsibility and understand what you're trying to do. Like that definitely is a huge boost up front. Plus the leaking out ability that they have.
yeah. Let's last offensive category, quarterback.
Cook had a great year. I mean, he really stepped it up this year. Both obviously. I mean, his rushing, you kind of expect that from him. He's already shown that the last couple seasons, but his passing was much better this year. Um, and Greg does what Greg does. I mean, I'm used to seeing that, so I'm not surprised. Like, it's Greg for me all day. It always will be. Dude's the GOAT, got 7 championship rings. I mean, I've seen that dude do some crazy shit in the championship game multiple times. Like, Levi's a hell of a quarterback, but Greg Medina knows how to win in these situations. He will literally put that team on his back at all costs.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, you got the experience alone at
Yeah,
quarterback in the Keystone
absolutely.
Bowl. It's
Yeah, that's what I mean. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying he's gonna go like Levi gonna be all like nervous and rattled and all. You know what I mean? But it's a different game than any other game. Like even the playoff games. You know what I mean? Playoff games are like kind of just another Saturday. But this is everything that you've worked for the last 3 years. You know what I mean? To reach the pinnacle. Well, now you're on the doorstep. That just brings a little bit of different pressure that you don't normally have to deal with. And now you're going up against a guy who's seasoned, who's been doing this for what, 12, 13, 14 years now? I don't even know how many. It's just ongoing. So, he's been what? This is what, Keystone Bowl number 10 for him, I think.
10 or 11, yeah.
So, you know what I mean? Yeah, this is like Tom Brady taking on Matt Ryan. You know what I mean? Guy playing in his first ever Super Bowl versus a guy playing in this, 10th or 11th one.
Yeah. It's all right. Let's get into defense. Uh, we'll start with the D line.
Jimmy Werner.
I mean,
Corey Myers. That's two solid defensive linemen, one on either side of the ball. This is a nice solid matchup. I mean, I think overall this is kind of a push for me. I mean, I think both defensive lines played great football. They both attack. They know how to wrap up. They know how to get pressure. Get their hands up, knock passes down. You know what I mean? So for me, like I feel like these teams are on an even playing field. They got pieces across the board that make plays.
yeah, it's Corey Myers led the league this year in sacks.
Yeah, I mean, dude's a beast. You turn on film, you see it every week. Every game that he's in, you see it. He's always around the ball. He's always putting pressure on the quarterback. I mean, same for Jimmy. Werner's the same way. I mean, every game that he plays in, he puts pressure on the quarterback. He makes plays. He gets sacks. You know what I mean? And then they got other guys that are around that just fill the rest of that one guy. You know what I mean? Like every defensive line has that one guy that's like the man, and then everybody else plays their role. And both these defensive lines have that. You know, they have what Hockenberry, I think, for the Buffaloes. You know, you got Stevie Eisenhuth that's been there forever with Mova. You know what I mean? That guy's still out there imposing his will. You know what I mean? Each team's got good players around that one stud player that really kind of sets the tone for the defensive line. I mean, it'll be great to see this battle. You know, Mova's D line versus that Buffs run game, and then the little I wouldn't say smaller, but a little faster on their feet. A little bit more getting up the field type of defensive line of the Buffs. Against Mova's passing game.
Yeah, it's so. Which one you picking?
Oh, I said it was a wash. I watched it.
Oh, you
I
watched
think
it?
these guys. I think these D lines are pretty basically even. I mean,
Yeah,
I know
I
people ain't
agree
gonna
with
agree
that.
with my assessment, but that's all right.
All right, let's go to linebackers.
I mean, for me, I wouldn't say it's totally clear and concise, but for me, it's pretty clear that it's Mova's linebackers. I mean, Zach Hoy's an absolute savage. He's been a savage his whole career. Dude covers sideline to sideline. You know what I mean? He blitzes crazy amount of times a game. Still manages to be all over the field while he's blitzing every other play. And I mean, Sheldon, like, dude's out here balling, man, just playing like shutdown corner at linebacker. I mean, I think he led the league in interceptions this year from a linebacker spot. Tell me when the last time a linebacker's led the league in interceptions.
Yeah, I can't think of anything anytime
Exactly.
recently.
Exactly. Point proven. I mean, honestly, I don't even know both Buffs linebackers. I know Zembauer is one of them, and I mean, he's solid when you watch a film. Like, he's got good football IQ. You know what I mean? He knows how to step up and fill lanes and put pressure on and drop back and cover. So, you know what I mean? He's solid, but I just think overall for me, I think the Vikings as a tandem linebacker core is pretty much as solid as it gets.
Yeah, I it's hard on this one because you got Zach Hoy, who, if you go by numbers, was kind of like a down year this year, but
I think
Sheldon
that also
stepped
has
up.
to do with maybe playing some different teams that play a different type of football and forfeits obviously and games missed.
Yeah,
I don't think he played in every game this year.
right. I don't think he did either. And
So,
I like
you know what I
what
mean?
Bauer and them are doing with their linebacking core, but you got to give the edge to the Vikings on this one. You can't just.
Yeah. I mean, for me, Zach Hoy's a Hall of Famer. So, um, I mean, I got to be in the league when Nick Sipes was roaming these fields, tearing people apart, destroying offenses. Like obviously the awards are named after him for a reason because he was the best linebacker in the league for years. You know what I mean? Averaging like 100 tackles a season and legit 100 tackles a season.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's the kind of linebacker that Hoyer reminds me of. You know what I mean? That guy that just doesn't have a motor that stops. Like he gets sideline to sideline. He gets in the lanes on pass blitzes. You know what I mean? He's not much of the cover linebacker. I think that's more Sheldon's role, but it's not that he can. I've seen him do it. And then, like I
Right.
said, I mean, Sheldon's out there playing, a lockdown DB as a linebacker. So,
I think Sheldon said that Zach only played 5 games this year.
yeah, I mean, and he was averaging, I think, at least when I was doing the stats, he was averaging probably at least 10 tackles every game that he played. Like I said, dude gets around the field.
Yep.
All right. DBs.
DBs. And as much as I like what Britt's doing with the Buffaloes, I got to go with the Vikings.
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean, I can't argue that. Like the Buffs, the one Buffs DB, he's had quite a few picks this season. I think he was one of the ones around the top for most of the year. But as a unit, it's a glaring weakness in that defense, and all you got to do is watch the film. Like I think that's if they can shore that up going into the chip game and figure something out, like you're taking a huge risk when you try to play up with your safety against teams that are really good at throwing the ball. Like that puts a lot of pressure on those dudes on the outside to be able to maintain one-on-one coverage against some really talented wide receivers. Like, I mean, it's not that the Vikings secondary's been locked down all year or anything either, but I think overall they've played better as a unit.
plus, the Vikings are a passing team. Buffaloes are a running team, so you're not going to really see too much of the DBs of the Vikings really get much work. But the DBs from the Buffs will get a handful of throws their way. And I just don't know if they can keep up with that pressure on the Buffaloes. I mean, at least the Vikings DBs, they'll get breaks in between run plays and that, but I see a lot of passing coming their way, and
That's the
I
thing. Can you
don't
hold up
know
for
if
the
they're going to
four
be able to
quarters
hold
that you're
down.
going to need to hold up for?
Yeah.
Because when you're going against the guys that are on the Vikings offense, you're going to have to hold up in the secondary for 4 quarters. Like the Buffs might burn the secondary of the Vikings for a few touchdowns. They did the first time they played them. Those play action passes are brutal, but it comes down to not getting behind early in the game and being able to stick to your game plan. Because when you're down 3 or 4 or 5 touchdowns in the second half, nobody's believing that run game no more. They'll let you run the ball. I'd let you run the ball for 2 more quarters if you wanted to. Like you're gonna have to open it up at some point. Now, if they can keep it, within a score and or even be leading and be able to continue to use that run game and that play action passing game could turn into be a huge problem for the Viking secondary. I mean, but like I said, overall, I got the Viking secondary.
All right. Let's get
What?
no. Let's get into special teams.
Oh shit! I didn't know we were doing special teams.
I didn't know either.
Wash. Wash that shit. They both got kick returners that can return kicks for touchdowns, and they both got good kickers. End of story. Moving on.
All right. All right.
Wash it.
So Trey Gilchrist said the Vikings DBs can't tackle. So he heard. So now that we went
Word
through
on the
all the
street.
positions in that, what do you think both teams need to do to win?
I've been pretty much saying it the whole time, but I think for the Buffaloes, like they need to not turn the ball over first and foremost, because that pretty much doomed them the first time they played the Vikings. Establish the run game, you know what I mean? Stick to it. You know, obviously if you're not turning the ball over, you're not giving up free possessions, you're not giving up extra points that you possibly wouldn't be giving up. And use the play action passing game. I mean, if you can keep the game close or be leading, like I said, that run game and that play action passing game becomes a whole lot more to deal with, especially when it's going to be 95 degrees outside. It's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. Run game starts wearing on you. Dudes start getting tired. You know what I mean? Assignments start getting blown. So I think for the Buffs, that's how they can win this game. And I mean, defensively, they're going to have to put tremendous pressure on Greg. Force him to make some bad decisions, take advantage of those bad decisions, and tackle. Obviously, we talked about that shit, and take those turnovers and use them to your advantage. And I think for the Vikings, what's that?
I was going to say, what about the Vikings now?
I mean, veteran leadership's going to lead the way for them. Like guys been there, done that. They know what they expect. They know what needs to happen. They obviously they probably want to turn this into a shootout. You know what I mean? They want to come out 100 miles an hour, try to drop as many points on them as fast as you can, and force them to turn into a team that they don't want to be. If you turn the ball over and let them hang around and let them be within a touchdown or tie or possibly even leading by a score or whatever, I mean, you're just putting yourself in a bad spot. But then again, like I said, veteran leadership leads the way over there. Guys been there, done that. They know what it's like to be down in a championship game and have to rally the troops and pull it out at the end. So I fully expect that if the situation, happens to be in that part of the game, I think they'll handle it. I mean, I got the Vikings winning this. I mean, you're not going to go against the GOAT. It's just how it comes down. Dude knows how to win championships. The guys around him know how to win championships. Even the Vikings players that are playing in the championship have won a championship. They know what it's like.
Yeah.
And that, it might sound weird because this is semi-pro football, but at the same time, like, it goes a long way in the biggest game of the season. Everything you've worked for is on Saturday night at 7:00. So, you know what I mean? You got to lean towards a team that has the best player in the fucking league history books. And the guys around them that, obviously been in there, done that, won championships. They know what it's like. Like for me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, essentially, like it's kind of a David versus Goliath matchup. Like you have the fucking stacked veteran roster of the Vikings playing. Some of those guys are playing in their 8th or 9th championship. Everybody pretty much on their rosters played in a chip game at least. And then you got the Buffaloes coming in playing their first ever chip game. You know what I mean? Tasting this all for the first time.
Now,
For me, I just feel like veteran leadership when a push comes to shove, rises to the occasion.
Now you'll be there tomorrow. You'll be announcing the
Woo-hoo.
game on the PA.
Yeah, man. How'd I get roped into that bullshit? I
You
thought I
always
was
talk
doing the
about,
live, man.
well, I don't
It's all
care
good. It's all good. I'll
if you
do the
want to do the
PA.
live and King do the PA. I don't care. Reverse it.
I'll do the PA. I'll do the PA. It's fine. He's already got his little shit going on. He's good with it.
And then you will be presenting our linear GEFA championship belt, the first ever for
Shit,
those.
I'm the belt and the trophy.
You could present the trophy. I don't care. And then
Give me
we'll
a
have
microphone.
Charlie. And then we're going to have Charlie present the MVP.
Charlie bit my finger.
So, for those who don't know, the linear championship belt that we're doing this year will be defended every game next year. Whoever wins, Buffaloes win it. They will have to defend it 10 times. And if they lose during the season, they lose the belt. And then the team that beats them will get that belt and will have to defend it until they lose.
So essentially, it's like an in-season trophy.
Yep.
It's
Just
like an
so we can
in-season
see.
tournament.
Yep.
There's only one championship that matters.
Right. But we're making the games matter. So we're bringing something new to the games next year. You have anything else to add before we go?
Nope. I think it's going to be a great game. I can't wait. On the mic. He's at
Yeah.
the 30. He's at the 20. He's at the 10.
You're going to get your Berman on. Your Chris Berman.
That's the only thing that sucks. Throwing PA, you can't talk during the play, man. It's bullshit.
We'll figure something out.
How are they doing the intros? Are they just coming in as whole squads?
I don't know yet. I
mean, I heard something about the Vikings fucking bringing like a bagpiper or something.
I heard that too.
That's awesome. I hope they do. Fucking Thor, man. Gotta love it.
Yeah, it's going to be something different. So it's definitely, we've come a long way with the Keystone Bowl, with the entertainment, the singing of the national anthem, the live streams, the halftime shows, the entrances.
Yeah. Neutral site, man. Huh? Yeah, you're welcome for that. You're all welcome for that. That was me. I did that for y'all.
You pissed and moaned enough, and the league listened.
No, I mean, I didn't tell them to put it in Kutztown for two teams that live 3 hours away. That wasn't me.
Oh. That was already determined a year ago.
That's a nice place, though. Nice field.
I know I reached out to Hershey Stadium for next year.
That'd be nice. Oh, that's in my backyard.
Or they used to do the PIAA.
They still do.
State championship. Oh, they don't. It's at
They
Cumberland
still do.
now. It's at Cumberland.
That's right. They did change it. That's right. They do playoffs up there, though, right?
You got your stories. I got the truth. It's fine.
That's it, man. It was like the first year they changed it over. Relax. Jesus.
Had we would have known it was going to be two mountain teams making it, then it would have been. Antoine, what about him? But yeah, we'll see how things go tomorrow. Should be a great day for football. A great day for the GEFA.
Yeah, let's
All right.
let's leave the GEFA in a good standing after this one, huh? Let's cooler
Yeah.
heads prevail. Know what I mean? We get it with it's the chip. You know what I mean? Testosterone's going to be high. We all know you're going to be all jacked up. You know what I mean? Just play ball. Come here to play ball, win a championship. That's what it's about. Then get hammered, drunk, and celebrate. Other than that, I don't got shit.
Yeah.
See y'all tomorrow.
All right. Later, everybody.